He's ready.
She has breakthrough on here. Okay. Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm going to call this special meeting of the town board to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Present.
Councilmember Delarada. Absent. Councilmember McPartlin.
Here.
Councilmember Brennan.
Here.
Supervisor Cassidy Dorian.
Here. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we wish to respectfully acknowledge that Niskayuna is on the traditional lands of the Kanikihaka and the Mohikaniaq peoples, past and present, and we honor with gratitude the land itself and the peoples who have stewarded this land throughout generations. We're going to get started with the public hearing for the budget. I know just looking at numbers in a spreadsheet isn't always the best way to evaluate what you're looking at. So I thought I would give just a brief rundown of what this means for you as a taxpayer as far as the posted budget. I feel like every day we're getting better information in and make minor tweaks to what's there. But let me pull up. Okay. So the last time that we presented the initial tentative budget, we talked a little bit about shifts in the town's tax base from our homestead to, or our non-homestead to our homestead, which sort of changes the way the tax rate shows up for you. We are also going to have a conversation with our town assessor for our next meeting, and he's going to give us some information about your tax bill, what goes into it, the kinds of things that we have control over, and the kinds of things that are given to us to put on the tax bill. Some other overarching themes, we have a lot of debt. A lot of questions came in from the public at the workshops saying, why don't you bond for this? Why don't you bond for that? First of all, the interest rates are still not great. And we have a lot of debt that we need to pay off. It's one of the reasons that that I put fund balance usage in the budget is to pay that debt off. There are bond payments in there. The fund balance that I used for the debt payoff would represent the difference. So the non-recurring costs of the debt that we've taken on. We also have increases in health insurance. We were able to get the health insurance for active folks down to 3% increase. However, we had about a 49% increase overall in our retiree Medicare rate. So that hit us unexpectedly as well. We also had increases in our liability insurance, in our state retirement programs, and then just general expenses. We also we're projecting a fund balance in our highway fund that is higher than our fund balance policy. We have a policy that says we can maintain between 25 and 50% of our appropriations in the individual funds, and we will exceed that in our highway budget as projected for next year. So thus spending down our debt in the highway fund and also making some purchases that are probably long overdue for highway. I think they are often told they have to hold off on purchasing equipment. And this year, because they have fund balance, we feel it's a good year for them to make those purchases. So the preliminary budget that's out there, the change in our appropriations percentage-wise is an increase of 0.45%. So that means the spend in both highway and general is increasing less than 1%, less than 0.5%. The change in the levy, which is the amount that goes out to your tax bills per thousand, is actually a drop. The total number is a drop 0.02%. But the way that it shows up for residential versus commercial accounts is a little different. So the homestead tax rate right now has a proposed increase of 2.96, and the non-homestead tax rate is only an increase of 0.16. So the numbers you're looking at in the preliminary budget those are, that if they stay exactly as they are, those would be that would be the information we would give to the tax department to be put on your bills. So I have a lot of information and I would love to give it all to you, but I'm interested to hear the kinds of things that are really sticking out to you. So I'm going to start with public comment. Just as we do in all of our other meetings, we're going to keep it to our 3 minutes. So we ask that you're respectful and that you keep your messaging brief. And if you have more to say, I'm happy to hear it after the hearing.
A public hearing regarding the preliminary budget for 2025. So I have two people on my list. Natalie Tiberio.
Hi, Natalie Tiberio. I've lived in Iskana for 45 years. I live on Seneca Road. So reviewing the approximate budget of $32,700,000 was an interesting process, and I'd like to share a few observations and thoughts. First, we have new anticipated bond debt service of $1,744,856, which I have submitted a FOIL requesting information on. I'm requesting the actual new debt. We are financing what it is for, interest rate, along with maturity dates. I then see we are utilizing our fund balance in the amount of $2,824,736. These two line items amount to a total of 14% of our budget, and it just seems like a lot of money. Second, we have experienced an increase in water charges and now understand that we are responsible for the town's water usage, including parks. And we also are absorbing a significant amount of water loss. JP Yeakel has shared those water loss numbers with the town. My thoughts are that we should be looking at ways to identify and resolve the water losses. One quick solution is to not complete the water park on River Road. And divert the monies, whatever monies are left, to cleaning up the current condition of the construction and asphalt areas, then utilize any remaining balance to other parks, perhaps Lions Park. I also noted in the budget for Water District 1 that we have 3 line items. I'm assuming all are associated with water meters, and that total is $1 million. Why not eliminate these devices altogether and staffing, vehicles, et cetera, and just adopt a flat fee for each household? Question. I believe this may be an area of potential savings and could lead to lower fair water charge rates for the residents. I think more considerations of these meters might prove beneficial. Another area of concern is the highway machinery. We seem to be spending a great deal on machinery each year. You've indicating that, Aaron. Also, I noted that one of the new anticipated bonds is allocating for highway, which is adding yearly payments of $628,503. I have no idea what this is for. However, my FOIL is including this new bond as well. My thoughts on equipment purchase approvals is one current example is a new water sewer purchase of a dump truck, which appears to be an International HX520 SFA 6x4. I like the color. This truck is typically used for mining and heavy construction. It has a weight capacity of 38.5 tons. However, empty has an approximate weight of 8 tons. Since most of our current roads have a capacity of 6 tons, what damage is this truck going to do to our roads, and how often are we going to be utilizing this very large truck? It is not for plowing, it is for hauling. I'm questioning this over 200,000 plus truck purchase, and I'm concerned about what other items are in the pipeline. A cost versus usage calculation is critical with these very expensive machines and trucks. Now, according to my calculations, our town's debt service in our annual budget is within the acceptable norms, and our unused reserve balances are also within the acceptable norms. However, my concern is the actual annual budget of $32.7 million. While doing some research and utilizing AI for an upstate New York township with approximately 24,000 people, the reasonable annual budget should be in the range of 20 million. Is this shocking? It certainly was for me, and it has given me much more to think about. In conclusion, our town is comprised of the haves and have-nots that Marina mentioned last month. The leadership has a fiduciary responsibility to all Niskayuna residents. Our current budget of $32.7 million is most certainly geared for the haves. The research shows that our township is over budget by at least 20%. What is the leadership going to do about this? It is your duty to serve all residents while keeping the town's budget within normal limits. Creative solutions are out there, and it takes courage to make the correct changes that are needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie.
Leslie Gold.
Well, I'm happy to, Leslie Gold from Niskayuna. I am happy to see that we're moving away from bonding everything in sight. Fast history, we started bonding police cars because one outgoing administration failed to provide for annual replacement of several of them. And the only way the town could get the cars that we needed was to bond. And that has been perpetuated for some number of years. So I'm happy to see that eliminated. I'm going to go right to my main point, which is the recycling and transfer station. Anybody who knows me won't be surprised. I understand the revenues have fallen short in recent years. I accept Mr. Yeto at his word that he's done his best to obtain the best possible rates for the town to operate that. I also know some people have been trying to have the land on which the station sits added to adjacent parkland. I do not support either that. I do not support closing this valuable resource. The town has done little to maintain usership of this resource, let alone try to increase it. When other work necessitated removal of the identification sign on River Road, its replacement lagged until I noted during a privilege of the floor that people thought the station had been closed permanently. Opportunities to increase use have been missed or ignored. Examples: the recycling and transfer station, often called the R&T, has not been featured on the website or on the newsletter. The availability of electronics recycling at the station, which is typically 3 times a week versus the highly touted once-a-year collection that the town does, usually at town hall, not this year though, never mentioned, nor the ability to recycle bulk items at the R&T at reasonable fees, nor the fact that the R&T is normally open Tuesday, Friday, and Saturday of each week, barring holidays. The town leadership claims to be in favor of green initiatives, but is gung-ho to close this one down. Oh, and I forgot something. The town started a small composting effort recently. To me, the most logical site in the world was at the R&T. However, the town instead decided to locate it at the community center, senior center on Aqueduct Road, while in other meetings bemoaning the center's non-central location. The R&T's location on River Road is convenient to several of the town's recreation sites: River Road Park, Blatnick Park, River Road Splash Pad, etc. Going back to the town being gung-ho to close this facility, closure may be simple and expedient, but it is certainly not a green choice. I routinely see private haulers mixing recyclables with garbage throughout the neighborhoods, and the drivers tell me it'll be sorted later. I doubt that, as neither wet, oily, nor greasy cardboard is recyclable. Neither is that with food or food stains, solvents, or oil-based paint. There are similar rules for paper. I read a recent letter to the editor noting that some residents cannot get haulers to their property, and another from William Schaefer noting that the town itself uses the facility. I too have seen multiple town vehicles utilizing the R&T. Does the town pay its share for that? Has its loss been accounted for in the new budget? Because you're going to have to pay to dispose it somewhere, somehow. Has the town considered how difficult it would be to return this site or develop another site for such use? I understand once designated as parkland, it would require an act of the state legislature to change that. I think the town should make an effort to increase use and retain this facility for the good of the environment and the town residents who regard recycling important. And while they're at it, maybe educate the other town residents how important recycling really is. And by the way, there was a suggestion we can use the Colony landfill. And I looked on their website and I quote, "Yes, residents from other municipalities may use the town solid waste management facilities, but they cannot bring in kitchen garbage." So not only would that be a very inconvenient solution, but a very incomplete one.
Thank you, Leslie. Is there anybody else that'd like to speak?
Yes, hi, I'm Jonathan Marr, also live over in Antonia Drive. I'm also the chair of the Tree Council. I gave you all a memo earlier. I guess I brought it to the office on Monday. I just want to raise the issue about the decrease in the funding for the tree planting, specifically the tree planting program and replacement trees. I realize budgeting is tough, and I haven't had to look at the budget, the great details you have, and I applaud you in all your efforts. But this is just a real awkward time, maybe the wrong time to be cutting tree planting. As I told you on our presentation October 8th, for the last 3 years, we've been under planting trees in comparison to those that have come down. So the number of our street trees is decreasing. We're in a state where we need to catch up, not fall further behind. With a cut in the budget of planting trees, which is likely to cause us to fall further and further behind. We're talking about a town of Niskayuna, which is known for its trees. It's an Arbor Day certified tree city. People in Niskayuna love the trees. It's good for housing prices. It's good for the environment. It's good for street noise and air conditioning and heating. And trees do so much stuff, so much wonderful stuff for our residents. If we cut the funding for tree planting now, we're going to go further into the direction of reducing our tree canopy, which could lead to a change in the quality of Niskayuna. So whatever you can do with the budget, if we can recover those $3,000 for the tree planting, at least that would, I think, make more sense, at least from the tree perspective in Niskayuna. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Joseph Yekel, 914 Roman. So I just had a couple of general comments. First of all, I appreciated the budget workshops that we had the last couple of weeks. I think that those were important leading up to tonight. And it's been good to talk with the new supervisor and some of the board members on these issues. You know that this stuff is really important, and you've seen this tremendous turnout of residents over the last 6 or 8 months, probably more so than the board has seen in a long time, because this information is vital, and we're all basically paying the bottom line on it. So my general concern with the budget that you're going to be voting on is it's big. It's, you know, you've heard it. It's over $32 million. And, you know, when you look at the way this budget has gone over the last few years, it's really taken off since about 2021. It started to ramp up from about 27 million and change to now where we're almost at $33 million. That's a heavy price to pay for the residents, because our population in the town is not really growing all that much. So this is more money being distributed over a smaller population. And the supervisor, you mentioned the 25 to 50% for the individual funds, and, you know, trying to find that comfort zone. I think you mentioned the highway fund might be a little bit over. And I just, you know, that's one of the things that I want everyone to be mindful of. If you're collecting revenues in a given year, more so than what you really need, you wind up with these budget surpluses. And that's money that people are spending out of their pockets, either in their utility bills or their property taxes. And it's great to have a nice pad in there. And we need a rainy day fund. But if you're over collecting, that may be from somebody that passed away from last year to this year. That's money that you've collected on somebody that is no longer a member, or they've moved out of the community. So when we start collecting these funds on, on utility bills and things like that, you got to be mindful about not over collecting. I was encouraged to see that we're getting some money in your discussion with Phil Stack. Honestly, I don't care where the money comes from, Democrat or Republican, it's taxpayer dollars. So if there's more money like that available, I would ask all the board members of the department heads to work on grants, anything that you can do to offset the costs that the residents and business owners in this town are going to have to shoulder is a good thing. So I'd ask you to look at that a little bit more closely. I know you made some adjustments between the second workshop and this one, but I honestly would have liked to have seen the total number come down. I think that this is still a big number, and it's going to be hard for people to handle, especially on top of the recent utility bill that just came in. So I know you're working on it, but I really want to see hard decisions being made. In pushing as hard as you can to shave things back. I know we all love and enjoy lots of services, but we don't have endless pocketbooks and wallets, and you all live here too. So it's important to be mindful of all that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Dan Sexton, Orland Drive. I just have a couple of things. I've been through the budget, and there's a lot of line items that I've highlighted, and it's just too much to go through here. But I'd be glad to talk to any one of you about my concerns there. But specifically, there are a few things. One, and Joe mentioned this, grant money. I noticed that you took the line item out for a grant writer. And if we're looking for grant money, having a grant writer might be very helpful. That's a plus, not a minus. I wish I could find some minuses, but unfortunately, I've also got a few other things that we need to address. One is specifically, and this is in the water and sewer rents area, the revenue coming in. And this is true for all three of those items, but I'm just going to highlight one just for the sake of brevity. In the case of the, let's use Sewer District 6. In the case of Sewer District 6, if I look at the water rent or the sewer rents that were projected, or not projected, but are being collected for 2024, and this came from the warrants for both March and September, we're only bringing in $1.95 million. But yet you have budgeted for 2025 at $2.4 million. So it seems like there's a $500,000 miss there. And also, if you just look at it from 2023 to 2024, the actual revenue has gone down just a little bit. Even though the rates seem to have gone up, the revenue went down. Water rates, we do get a little bit more revenue from water, but certainly not to the extent that people are seeing in their bills. So I don't understand that one at all. The other thing is for Sewer District 1, and I would like to see in Sewer District 1 a revenue item to collect the over $400,000 that was missed in the 2023 billing. So as you recall, and I've mentioned this before, as you recall that we actually neglected to collect for the last half or the first half of 2023 in the billing cycle. And I don't see that extra revenue or any mechanism for which you're going to try to recover that money. The town's got a big budget. We can't afford to let that kind of money disappear. That's all I'm going to talk about. Thank you.
Thank you.
Linda Rizzo, 2229 Fairlawn Parkway, Niskayuna. I want to take a different avenue regarding the budget. When I looked at this budget for this year and you look at past budgets, it's really clear to the naked eye that you are just tweaking budgets from year to year. I mean, you're not changing the way you do the budget. You certainly you have never used zero-based budgeting. Because, as I said, you're just tweaking it. And if you look at zero-based budgeting, it encourages intentional financial planning. It requires you to review and consider every expense regularly, which instills a habit of mindful spending, paving the way for long-term financial success. And on the other hand, the one con you can say about it, it's time consuming. And in order to do that, you would need a CFO, a chief financial officer, or if you want to call it a controller, who is highly skilled in accounting and or a CPA that had the ability to do this. Because unless you have an extremely skilled person, you cannot do zero-based budgeting because it is time consuming. And this town has never done this. Your budgets are tweaked from year to year. So when people come up and question this and that, if you go through all the budgets, you can see that's exactly what's happening. The other issue is your continual use of your total fund balance. Now, I've addressed this before because the New York State Comptroller's Office has identified a low fund balance as poor financial planning. And you do it because you don't want to raise taxes. However, a high fund balance is also poor financial planning. And this is a point that no one seems to be getting up here on the board or the supervisor. It is not good financial planning. And one of the signs of a high fund balance is unduly, quote, high taxes. We fit perfectly into that category that the state comptroller is describing in his documents. And I think at one point I sent you all the documents from the state comptroller's office where they define what good budgeting practices are, what bad budgeting practices are, and we just seem to fall in that category. Those are facts. That's not me saying it. That's not me looking at the budget and questioning this item and that item. This is coming right from New York State's comptroller's office. So two things I want to say. You never have done zero-based budgeting. You just tweak the budgets from year to year. That's a fact. And if you want to do zero-based budgeting, you do need a highly qualified CFO. And I don't think unless we start doing things like that, nothing is going to change and people are going to be up here again next year and the year after. So we do need some sort of radical change. My last point is, yes, inflation has affected the town, but it's affected every homeowner. We are all experiencing it. This is not just the town. So my point is, if we as homeowners and taxpayers have to cut our budgets, why aren't you doing it? Because you can't say to us, oh, we have to raise this because of inflation. Well, you know what? You're talking to people that are experiencing it, and we don't have a fund balance to go to use, to take money out. We can't, if we keep taking money out of our reserve savings, we'll wind up in a position where we can't pay the taxes. We can't use our credit cards, or shouldn't be using them, to pay for things, because then we incur high credit card debt. So what we can't do, or what we don't do because we're financially savvy with regard to our home budgeting, you need to do. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
William Chapman, 1465 Clifton Park Road. One, I do want to thank the board for maintaining the ADA compliance line in A005410 so that we can continue to make our sidewalks safer for folks that are in wheelchairs or baby carriages or walking across the street, get up curbs to get from one sidewalk to the next, and doing other things. I did have just a quick question on D005112, which is highway personal service. It's down $128,000. And then snow removal, which is D005142, which personal service down by 110. And I was wondering if that's a reduction in highway employees or whatever, but I know that they do a lot of work on our roads and they do a lot of road maintenance in the winter. And what was going on with that? I also wanted to say I saw the clip where Assemblyman Steck is going to be providing some resources to the town, and that one of the items mentioned in water and sewer billing was hiring an independent firm to review our water charge calculations, water and sewer service, ensure it's accurate and fair. I think that's a sensible thing to do and encourage that. Payment flexibility, I think that's another good idea. Some people have gotten big bills that, they're going to pay it, but being able to stretch it out over the year. A separate meter for lawn sprinkler systems, that strikes me as a sensible step also. And then I know the town has, Christine in the water sewer department has been available to go over the bills with people. That's a good thing. If the town still has the ability to notify a resident if they have had a big jump in water use in case they've had a leak or something, they find out in a sooner time. And I also think it's good where water and sewer residents are able to benefit from a water and sewer employee that was willing to come and take a look at their home to see some things that you wouldn't ordinarily see. And finally, I also do want to say, I believe the board had many positive things in looking at the water and sewer rate charges that get overlooked a little bit. And one is, moving the sewer service charge from a property tax bill to a utility bill is something that's encouraged in state law. It's a good thing to do. I think that the board has seen that in order to meet expenses, the city of Schenectady has raised the rate. I think it's up to $62 now per home in sewer one that they charge to process the septic that goes to Anthony Street. And Mr. Yetto's even indicated that chemicals, equipment repairs, electricity, all of those expenses have been going up. And the board has had to use fund balance in order to pay the bills to run these systems. And so raising the rates to be able to pay those expenses is a necessary thing, I would say. And also just when we look at the water rates in some of our neighboring municipalities, they've been higher, which means they've been meeting these expenses that we now have to meet too. Niskayuna was at 307 on the water. It's now gone to 440. But Albany's at 396 per 1,000 gallons, Colony at 440 per 1,000, Clifton Park 440, Troy at 403. So we're playing catch up a little bit. I'd also like to say fairness in terms of sewer usage is something that is incorporated in the new water and sewer rates, which I think gets overlooked. On 1400 block of Clifton Park Road, we have 28 houses, 8 of them is a single resident that lives there. And so if the sewer service is now based on usage, based on, well, what is the demand this house is placing on the sewer system, it's a fairer charge. And that someone that washes the car, fills the pool, waters the lawn a lot, maybe they have 3 or 4 kids, they're using more water. And so this is just a case where you're paying that sewer charge based on what you're using. And so it's a fairness element here. And I do think that when we take a look at some of the specifics in the water rate billing, that there are good things that were incorporated in going to the new model, and we don't want to lose sight of those. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Have anyone else? You want to say one more? Sure, why?
Leslie Gold again. I thought I should explain my laughter at the term zero-based budgeting. It takes me back to my graduate course in governmental accounting and budgeting. And a wonderful professor who had been director of the budget and actually left us for a few weeks to go over to, I believe it was Ghana, and help instruct the new government there on how to do budgeting. And he got to tell us about zero-based budgeting. And with a straight face, inquired how many governments, what percentage of governments actually used it. And we had a few guesses. And then he told us practically zero. And that led to a discussion partly in class and a lot afterwards on why you wouldn't, what goes into doing it that way. And the answer was it was a lot of repetitive effort. And the few governments that he could tell us about that did it tended to repeat themselves every year. It was the same justification. So it was kind of a myth. And I did want to add also, I agree with Mr. Chapman about the equity in the utility bills. That is something the town is legally required to strive for. That is what state law actually requires, controllers, regulations, et cetera. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Art Pasquarello. I live at 4016 Windsor Drive. And I really didn't plan on saying anything this evening. I just came to listen, but I thought I'd add my 2 cents. My wife Lydia and I have lived in the town of Niskayuna for almost 50 years, 48 years and 9 months to be exact. And I've never before attended a meeting involving money with the town. I think Niskayuna is a wonderful place to live, but it's an expensive place to live. When you consider the town bill with the school tax bill and the increased water and sewer charges, it's a tough nut to crack. I can't imagine how young couples with a couple of kids today deal with that expense, that responsibility. Anyway, I have some experience in looking at budgets and financial statements. I was an attorney for 50 some years, and I looked at the budget pretty carefully. My findings and conclusions are no different than yours. You do a lot of borrowing. Your debt's excessive, in my opinion, and you dip into those reserve funds, which I think is a mistake. Sooner or later, there's going to be a rainy day, and those funds are going to be deficient. So I think you're aware of that. I think you should pay attention to that. I mean, you're in town hall every day. We are not. You know certain things. You see things here that where you can cut. A decision maybe involving personnel, I know, is difficult to do. Maybe it's necessary, or an item, a product that you purchase. When I looked at your budget, I tried to find ways to cut. And I'll be honest with you, I couldn't. Because if you take it from column A, you're hurting somebody in the community with that cut. So it's difficult to do. I admit it. I don't want to have your job to have to deal with that. A couple more things very quickly. The transfer station. Let me add my vote to keep the transfer station going. Couple reasons. Number one, I'm one of the old guys who's mentioned in one of the articles that uses the transfer station. When you get old, sometimes you don't accumulate that of garbage where you need a commercial vending company to do it every week or periodically. So it's a nice convenience to have. And especially if you've been paying taxes in the town for 50 years, maybe we've earned a right to have that transfer station. Plus, the gentleman who works there is a true gentleman. He's knowledgeable, he's patient, he's understanding. We should all be like him when dealing with the public. One more thing, and I noticed you took this out of the budget. You hired a public relations firm earlier this year. My opinion is we elected you to speak for us and to speak to us. We don't need an advertising firm to speak to us. We hired you to do that. That was a waste of money. I'm sure it was done in a moment of panic because of the problems with the water bills. But I think it's out of the budget. It's been removed. It's not a line item this year, so that's a favorable thing. I think I'm over my time, but again, I say, it's a great place to live. You know that. You want to be here, and you're sort of the face of the town. So just be attentive to the needs of the people out here and what expenses we have to pay. And be attentive to that. So hopefully we can keep that cost down, that family with a couple of kids they have to raise here. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Art. Anyone else? You got one more?
Just something I forgot to mention before. Let me be real quick. And I mentioned this at the last board meeting. With regards to this meeting, one of the things we should be doing is to put the announcement for the public hearing on the website. There is a place on the website for public hearings, but I don't think the last thing that's been there
It's there.
since
It's there.
2023 or 2022 was the last when I looked at it.
I think there's a planning board public notice section that might just say public.
Yeah, it
notice.
may have been, but it's not on the web. No, it's not on the website in the area of public hearings and public notices. And so I think that would be useful.
It was on the
help
front page.
of the website. I didn't see it, and I'm sorry. But anyway, we do have that section there, and that might be useful to put the meeting notices there. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Speaking about the public hearing, I just wanted to make this mention. If you could think about this, you might want to have it other than 5:30. Think about it. If you want public input, 5:30 is not the time to do it because you have people coming home, they have meetings, they can't come. They just can't come. I mean, 7 o'clock, I think, would be more appropriate to hold these things. If you really want residents to come, you'd have more than a handful of people sitting in the audience because 5:30 is just not a good time if you're really interested in public input. Thank you.
See what I started? Sorry.
It's an old tradition. Second bite of the apple, assuming everybody's had a first bite. Again, Bill Chapman. I do want to join the folks that are advocates for keeping the transfer station open. One, I do think that more ambitious use where turning in TVs or motor oil or paper. Several speakers have pointed out that they feel confident that their recyclables actually do get recycled with newspapers, metal products. I join Art in saying that the folks at the transfer station are very nice. And we run a lot of programs that don't make money, but in some sense, it's a nice social thing. People often stop and visit, so it's a good thing, a connecting kind of a thing. Also, for folks that may be away during the year, I ask myself if having the transfer station can still be a little bit of a break on private haulers, that everybody uses those, that if it's there, it still benefits people that may not use it because if one hauler goes up $5 a month, or the people behind him maybe $2 less a month, but they go up $3 or whatever. But if you have the transfer station, it's still another option that if you're willing to haul stuff, and parents or older adults that live by themselves, it gets more manageable. I mean, it's still work, but you may only make one trip a month or whatever to take stuff. And so I feel like it's an option that can still provide a little bit of a break on the prices going up in the private hauler community. So I think it's worth keeping open, and also more ambitious use of different recycling things, because you've got a place. So to take your paint, to take your old TVs or stuff, that could be set up where you take it down during regular transfer station hours, and it's not just one day every 6 months or something like that. So, thank you.
Thank you, Bill. If there's no one else, I'll close public comment and we can move on to our resolutions. Okay. So we only have two for today. First is Resolution 2024-255. It's sponsored by Councilmember Delarada. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution making a secret determination and calling for a public hearing on proposed amendments to Chapter 220 entitled Zoning of the Code of the Town of Niskayuna.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm in my committee meeting mode.
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Cassidy Dorian.
Yes.
4 eyes.
All right, motion passes. We'll move on to 2024-256, sponsored by Councilmember Moskowitz.
A resolution awarding a contract for paving repairs on Knott Street.
Second.
Any discussion? And just for everyone who's here, this is the section of Knott Street that got ripped up by that big water main break. We're trying to get the paving done before it snows, so hence the urgency. All right,
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Cassidy Dorian.
yes.
4 eyes.
All right, with no other resolutions, we'll take a motion to adjourn.
Second, the motion to adjourn.
All in favor, or do you see?
No.
That's it. All right.
Aye.
Forgive me, I'm exhausted, so my brain is in all different directions.
Introduction to. The introduction to.